Shabbat Shalom to you and happy Hanukkah. So festive, so much light we can fill into our lives with the coming of Shabbat at sundown and the celebration of Hanukkah. Hope that you are enjoying your Hanukkah so far, that you're eating lots of latkes and that you have eaten many sufganiyot and you have put on your latkes whatever your preference, whether they're with applesauce or sour cream or some other version, whether you like them a little thicker, like the hockey puck size, or the thin, crunchy ones. I am preferential for the ones that come from Trader Joe's in a little blue box. I like those. But the Torah portion this week, Miketz, is the continuation of the story of Joseph and his brothers. It is so good. It is so good. We started last week with the development of the story of Joseph and how he ends up at the end of last week's Torah portion in prison. This week, we start with him getting out of prison, and he solves some mystery dreams for the Pharaoh, and then he ends up, I'm doing a very fast forward of this, he ends up essentially the viceroy of Egypt, the vice president, if you will, of Egypt, which is pretty impressive. From the fact that he starts the previous week, he starts in prison, and then he ends up the viceroy. So, but I want to talk to you about this very interesting little nuance. So he's the vice president, he's the viceroy of Egypt essentially, and he's doling out food during a famine. And it's then when he notices his brothers enter the chamber to gather food, and he kind of plays a game with them because they throw him in a pit in the previous week, and he's not really sure if he can trust them or not trust them. But he sort of puts them in this interesting task that they have to do. And then to sort of move the task forward, he waits 3 days. So the text actually says on the third day, he communicates further with his brothers. And I want to talk about on the third day, hence my threes behind me. The Torah really likes this idea of on the third day. There's this it's a very interesting structure. It happens more than 35 times throughout the Tanakh, throughout the Hebrew Bible, that we have the phrase after the third day or 3 days later. And usually when that happens, something significant is about to occur. So for instance, in the 3 day concept is right around the Akedah, the binding of Isaac, which is significant. This moment right here, by the way, when Joseph and his brothers are figuring things out, like I read to you in this week's Torah portion, Miketz talks about 3 days later. Esther has a 3 day waiting period before she goes to speak to the king in our story of Purim. She has to have that courage. So those 3 days also. So there's this very beautiful and mysterious three concept of what 3 days has to do. So I want us to be thinking about that on the Shabbat. I want us to be thinking about why 3 days. Is it a preparation period? Is it a cooling off period? Is it the Torah's way or the Bible, really the Tanakh's way of showing us that before we do something, maybe we should process it before we just jump right in, that maybe those 3 days really allow us that first day of getting over it, that second day of reflection, and the third day of preparation? It doesn't really say. But I just wanted to mention to you the significance of 3 days. And I would love for us to chat about it. So if you have a guess as to why the 3 days, I'd love to hear from you. Either send me an email, join us for Torah study, of course, because we'll be discussing this 3 day interesting thing that goes on in this Torah portion, among many other things in Miketz. It is so good, so good. So can't wait to see you later. Don't forget, services tonight are at 6:15, and it is the Hanukkah. It is the Shabbat in Hanukkah. So we'll be having services and also some Hanukkah celebration. So please join us tonight, 6:15 for services. And then, of course, tomorrow morning at 8:30 a.m. on Zoom for the further conversation of Miketz. So again, hope you're having a wonderful and light-filled Hanukkah so far, and a nice preparation for Shabbat. And please think about the significance of why the 3 days. What is that waiting period? Why does the Bible go out of its way to mention that to us? I look forward to chatting with you about it. Shabbat shalom to everybody.